Hi, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Heather and you're here on my channel. This is Heather's Crochet Corner. I do teach crochet lessons locally within my hometown here of Kemptville, Ontario. And what I've noticed is that after doing several lessons, I have a lot of information that I want to share with new crocheters, but in the 2-hour time limit that I'm sort of setting these events up for, I feel like I don't always get in everything that I want to share. So for me, these videos are very supplemental to the lessons that you may attend in person. So I'm able to break things down. I'm able to go a bit slower. You guys who have been to my classes or will be attending in the future, you may find more information here than what I'm able to share in person. So hopefully you guys find this, really helpful, because I know for me, I didn't have a lot of one-on-one instruction when I first learned. So I got really frustrated and I didn't continue for several years. And it wasn't until, thank God for the internet, right? And YouTube videos and tutorials for someone like myself who is who learns better visually. YouTube videos have been a great help for me to get back into crocheting and learning everything that I know now, and I'm able to pass it on to you guys. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so my goal for these videos is to basically just sort of go step by step in how a person goes from, having just an interest in learning to crochet to actually being able to create something and know the basic stitches, rather than sort of just jumping around and showing you various projects done in different stitches. I think it's important to make these videos sort of step by step, almost like in a chronological fashion, as to what we experience as being new crocheters. So I've already covered in a previous video all about yarn weights, how to read the yarn labels, and I've covered a little bit about how to identify hooks and the various styles of hooks. So right now, this video, next in line would be how to hold your yarn, how to hold your hook, how to make a slip knot, which is about, I'd say, 80% of the time in any crochet project, you are making a slip knot as your first initial, stitch to start your project. So it's really important that you know how to do that. I will try to go as slow as I can. I will repeat several times so you guys can, follow along if you're following along. Or you can pause this at any point. You can rewind it at any point if you feel like I'm going too fast or you need a little more time to catch up. And we'll get started. One of the biggest hurdles I see as myself as a new crocheter at one point, and what I see a lot in the classes I teach, is that it's very awkward for new crocheters to know how to hold the yarn, to know how to hold the hook, and to sort of make both hands work together in a sort of cohesive fashion. So my goal today is to give you guys options, let you know, again, I'm always going to say there is no right or wrong in crochet. It's all a matter of preference. So what you see me doing may work for you. It may not work for you. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It just means you've got to find a better way, a different way that is comfortable and makes sense for you. So without further ado, let's see what we have here on the table. I am reusing this neon variegated mini ball of yarn because I find that it shows up really well on camera, and the fact that it changes color helps me to point out various things along the way. I have a 5mm aluminum crochet hook. It's the same hook I give to all of the people who attend my crochet lessons, so I'm using exactly what I'm giving you. I have a crochet tension ring. I will demonstrate how this works. New crocheters may find this super handy until you figure out your tension and figure out how to hold the yarn. For someone like myself, I don't need to use one at this point, but I will show you how to use them. I have a yarn needle. It's an aluminum one. It's got a little slanted end there, just to kind of show you how to fasten off your ends. We have some scissors. I have a measuring tape here. I don't know that we'll get to it, but again, it's something handy to have whenever you're crocheting, so we'll just sort of leave that there. And to get on with this, you have your ball of yarn, and this is the tail end. For obvious reasons, it looks like a tail. Some people will call them stragglers, same thing. So this is for me, my non-dominant hand is my left hand. So my working yarn goes in the non-dominant hand. I am right-handed, so my crochet hook goes in the dominant hand. So there's various ways to hold your yarn, to hold your tension. And there are 2 ways, as far as I know, to hold your hook. You can hold it like a pencil or a pen. You can hold it that way. Or I prefer the butter knife hold. Just easier for me, just feels more comfortable. This way was taught very early on in crochet. So a lot of the European elites, who crocheted like the very dainty, lacy, delicate works, it looked a lot more, I guess, sophisticated, sort of doing it this way. You'll see maybe a lot of older folks who are teaching you, maybe your grandmother, maybe your mom, maybe an aunt, will hold their hook this way. It's because that's how they were taught by whoever it was that taught them. The only thing to make note about, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's preference, is that you are more susceptible to probably getting carpal tunnel because your wrist is moving in sort of unnatural movements. But maybe you'll be fine. It's really up to you. I prefer this method. It's just what makes sense for me. So those are the 2 ways to hold your crochet hook. And your working yarn, I don't know that you'll ever find 2 people that will hold the yarn the same way. So there's no right, there's no wrong, it's preference. So for me, I tend to just leave myself a bit of a tail because you have to sew this in. So if you have too short of a tail, you're not going to be able to get that needle to really go through too many stitches, and your ends might just unravel itself, and you don't want that. And not when you spent, several hours making something fantastic. I'd hate for you to have it all unravel because you didn't leave a long enough tail. So for me, I just hold my working yarn in my hand. It just goes across the front. It just dangles there, and that's how I hold it. And the first thing you need to do is to create a slip knot. If you already know how to make a slip knot, go ahead and make it in any way that you know how. Again, that's something that's a no right, a no wrong. It's a matter of preference. There's several ways to make a slip knot. I'm going to show you one way because for me, I'm a visual learner, and so I teach that way. And sometimes I use, I think the word is mnemonic. I think it's like a memory word, like association. I could be wrong in that term, but anyway, it's a word memory association. So I kind of have adopted Mikey from the Crochet Crowd, his approach to making a slip knot. So we're doing like 2 frogs on a log. So imagine your finger here is the log. We have our yarn, it's wrapped here. I'm just going to close my fingers. Just close my fingers to kind of keep that yarn from slipping. I'm going to point my finger. I've got my log. I'm going to wrap the yarn. There we go. So I should have 2 segments of the working yarn on my log here on my finger. So if we pretend that this is the front of the log and this is the back of the log, we've got 2 frogs on our log. And what we're going to do is we're going to do like a little leapfrog action. So this back frog here, very excited to learn how to crochet. So he's jumped over that first frog. and he just stays at the front. You can put your finger there to hold him in place. And then this frog, which was the first, now at the back, he's just so darn excited, he hops right over the end of that log, just like that. Keep your finger like there, and your hook goes right inside there. Use your thumb if you have to. Take your finger out. You can pull the tail. There you go. Pull the tail so it's somewhat snug. That's your slip knot. Let me do that again because I was sort of watching my hands and not watching the camera to see if I was in frame. So I will take my hook out. I will give that a little tug. Do that again for you. My hand. The tail is just sort of draping down in front. I'm pointing my finger. I'm wrapping that yarn. I've got like 2 strands here. I'm gonna maybe just pinch that guy there so it's not too loose. I'm gonna play leapfrog just like that. Okay, and your hook goes right there. All right, and you're gonna just snug that up. And we'll do that a 3rd time just to make sure everybody can catch up and can get it. Just gonna take my hook out. I'm gonna give that a little tug. And we're gonna do that again. So yarn just wraps around. I'm gonna point my finger. I'm gonna wrap that yarn. I'm gonna sort of kind of hold it there. I'm gonna take this strand. I'm gonna leap it over that first one. I'm gonna grab this yellow one here and hop it right over the end. And what's left on your finger is your slip knot. There you go. So there's that. All right. So for me, I'm gonna just show you, I'm gonna just hold my yarn the way it just naturally wants to go for me. What I tend to do is I tend to close my 3 fingers over the yarn and I sort of wrap my finger and I pinch where the slip knot is or where the closest stitch is to the hook, and that just keeps me from, I don't know, it just gives me some stability so I can hold my hook straight. I can move my left hand, my working yarn hand, in any direction that I want. The hook stays straight. So it's not always a matter of manipulating the hook and the yarn together, because that's more like a, I mean, you can, if that's comfortable for you. Maybe you're a knitter and that sort of like that movement might make sense to you. Again, not right, not wrong. It's find what is comfortable, find what works for you. So we've got our slip knot here. I've got my working yarn in the left hand. I've got the hook in my dominant hand. I'm using the little flat portions of my hook. See there how it's got little flat depressions? I'm putting that with my index finger and my thumb. And the rest of the hook just sort of sits in my hand there. So I've got full control of what I'm doing with it. So the first thing you do after you make your slip knot is you have to make chains. In this case, we're going to chain 20. And what chaining is, it's basically giving you a foundation to work from. It gives you a foundation to add your stitches to, much like a foundation to your house. You've got to have the foundation or some sort of foundation to build upon, and that same is true in crochet. So what we're going to do is we've got my hook, it's facing up, the curve is facing up to the ceiling. I'm going to wrap my yarn so it's in the hook there. That's called a yarn over, because you are essentially taking the yarn and you're putting it over the top of your hook. So whatever method works for you. See, so hook is facing upwards, hook is not moving, my working yarn is moving. So yarn over, I'm going to turn the hook so it's facing down. See, it was up, turning it down. And now that I've caught that yarn, you can see that yellow strand. I'm going to just take my right hand and pull it through that slip knot. That is your first chain. I'll do that again. I'm going to, you gotta get that loop over the shaft there. That's what gives all your loops the same size. And I'm going to wrap that yarn over the top. I'm going to yarn over, going to turn that hook so it's facing down, and I'm going to just pull through that stitch there. That's 2 chains. All right, so with your tension, you want to make sure that your hook can slide through, which it does. It's not so loose that I could fit several in there, and it's not so tight that I can't really do much with it. It should be just a little bit loose so that you can easily slide that back and forth, because that's what keeps your stitches being the same consistency. So with me, again, I pinch close to where the crochet hook is. I have my hook facing up. I'm wrapping and grabbing that yarn. As I wrap and grab, I'm turning the hook so that it's facing towards the floor, and I pull through that last stitch, that last chain. See, that's 3. And you can tell it's 3 because you made your slip knot here. That's this yellow piece here. That first orange little V, that's your first chain. That yellow little V is chain number 2. We just created this one here. That's chain number 3. This is never a stitch. This is your working yarn. So this will never count as a stitch. So again, grabbing my yarn and what's comfortable for me, going to pinch where I just made that stitch, making sure my tension is good. Going to wrap that yarn again, turn the hook down, pull it through, and make sure your loops get onto that shaft there. Don't keep them in here because your tension will be off. Make sure you keep it where it's consistent. So for me, it's like from here to here. That's where I want my stitches to be. And yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Keep adjusting my pinch point as I grow the chain. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Keep adjusting that pinch point. Okay, and let's see, how many chains do we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. All right, so we have 20 stitches, and now I'm going to show you how to identify your stitches. I've covered this already in the headband video, but assuming you're going to watch these maybe in chronological order, you haven't seen that yet. So I'm going to just use my yarn needle to kind of point things out. So don't worry about this. This is just my next, this is just the loop I pulled the hook from. That's nothing right now. So here I'm going to show you in the yellow. We have 1 stitch here. This half orange, half yellow is 1 stitch. That's where your working yarn is coming from. You've got this first yellow V right here. That's your second stitch. A second yellow V, third stitch, another stitch, and then it goes into the green all the way down. So your stitches are made up of the front loop. That's always the loop facing you. you have a back loop. It's always the one facing away from you or the furthest from you. And if you were to turn your chains over, you can see how there's these little bumps at the back. Look like a dragon's spine, all scaly. So this is the back bump, not to be confused with your back loop. So with crochet, you can work into the front loop only. You can work into the back loop only. You can work into both loops, or you can turn it over and you can work into that back bump. So it all depends on what you're making and what your pattern calls for. But for now, I'll show you, I'll probably just show you everything so you guys can see. One thing I happen to notice in my crochet classes with new crocheters is they don't really know where to put their hook. So they are they've already, because you got to turn your work. So you got to add height to your project. So by doing that, you need to, in this case, we'll just add one more chain so that you've add the height. So, you've got a flat piece, but you have to, we're working the work this way and also that way. And we turn our work and we add the height and we go back the other way. So it all makes sense. So I see a lot of new crocheters, working into both the front and the back, which is totally fine and very common to do. So they would then just sort of, bring their yarn through and they would do a single crochet, and then they'll end up catching just the back loop, and they'll do the same thing. They'll do a single crochet. They'll catch just the front loop. Oh, make sure I get all the strands there. And they'll do a single crochet. Or things will twist on them and they end up somehow getting into the back bump back here. Let's see here. And they'll work a single crochet into that. And while the stitch is correct, you're not consistent in where you're placing them. So that's one thing I see that happens all the time. And that's fine. That's what beginners do. That's to be expected. But what's worth noting is just pay attention to where you're placing your stitches, and then just be consistent with where you're placing your stitches, unless you're following a pattern that gives you a variety, because sometimes they do. So if you find that you made a mistake, you find, oh geez, I was supposed to just go through like the front loop and I feel like I've gone through something that wasn't just the front loop, you can just pull your yarn and it will undo your stitches, which is something you can't do very easily when you're knitting. And one term we use in crochet is called frogging. And frogging is when you have to pull your stitches, what's known as rip it, which sounds like a ribbit, like a frog. So it's called frogging. So you might hear that term, and that's all that refers to. So you're just right back where you started. You've got your chains, and we will just add an extra one for height, because I'm not sure where we left off, but it doesn't matter. This is just for demonstration purposes. So what we're going to do now is show you what a slip stitch is. A slip stitch is the smallest stitch in crochet, and what that means, or how you make one. Let's see, I'm going to have you go through both the front loop. There we go, there's the front loop. Push your hook through that back loop, you're going to yarn over, and you're just pulling your hook through all those loops. That's a slip stitch. That's typically used at the end of a project when you're sort of trying to, maybe you've got like two ends that you're trying to join up. You might join it with a slip stitch, because otherwise you're adding a stitch and maybe your pattern doesn't account for that. But it's very common. You'll be using that, so it's good to know how to make a slip stitch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch down this entire row here, so you can see how that looks. I'm going to go into the front and back loops. So here's this yellow one here is the front loop. This orange one here is the back loop. So I'm going to just push my hook through there. And I'm going to just yarn over and pull through everything. That's a slip stitch. Do that again through the front loop. Oops, it slipped out there. Through the back loop. Yarn over and then just pull that yarn through all of it. Do that again. Underneath that front stitch, underneath that back loop. By all means, use your fingernails if you gotta, get that hook through, because it doesn't always want to cooperate. And again, under that front loop, under that back loop, wrap that yarn, pull it through, and pull it through. So I'm going to continue to do this off camera, and you can do the same if you're following along. And then we're going to come back, we'll turn our work, and I'll show you how to do a single crochet. Alright, I've got my row of slip stitches all finished. I know that working in the initial chain foundation can be a bit frustrating. What you may have noticed if you're working along with me is that your work just kind of wants to twist. So you just gotta make sure that you're holding your work and you are able to identify where your stitches are, so that you're not working into the back and then working back into the front and then working back into the back and then working back in the front, because I've seen that happen as a new crocheter, and I've seen new crocheters sort of fall victim to that. So what I'm going to do is, because these stitches are really quite tight. I mean, normally I crochet at a very sort of a medium consistency. It's just because the slip stitch is very short, and it's pretty well stacked on top of these chains. I think what I might do is just sort of give myself a little bit here and sort of snip the end. And then I think we're going to just sort of start at the beginning with the single crochet and just pull it off. That's called fastening off, by the way. It's also shown in patterns as FO for fastening off. So it means my stitches aren't going to come unraveled doing that. So I'm going to just sort of maybe set that aside for now. And I'm going to demonstrate again the slip knot, chaining, and now we're going to do a single crochet. I'm also going to demonstrate this tension ring. So if you've noticed while you were chaining or making those slip stitches that your tension's a little off, maybe some of them are really loose, maybe some of them are so tight that you can't get that hook back into it, you may want to consider getting a tension ring. They do come in different styles and different variations. This one happened to be another free item from Amazon that I was able to review as a crocheter. I did get a packet of 6. They came with 2 of these and a few look like little peacock, I guess, design, which I didn't find very helpful. I find the ones with the open hook to be better. Again, preference. You might find the peacock ones to be perfectly fine for you. Again, so just by playing around off camera, I've realized it's better for me on my index finger with the hook off to the side and facing down. For you, you would have to play around to see what feels best for you. Again, crochet, matter of preference. So we're going to still do the frogs on a log. Do you guys remember how to do that? Gonna working yarn here, going to wrap twice, going to take this back strand, jump it over the front, and then take this back strand and push it right off the top. And so what's left on your finger is your slip knot. I'm gonna just tighten that up, and we're gonna do another 20 chains. And for me, I'm just naturally trying to get my yarn where I normally have it, but I really should be trying to get it into that tension ring. So let's see. Yeah, it's awkward for me to even to try to use it because I don't need it necessarily. We'll see how this goes. So I'm going to do 20 chains. Again, you're yarning over and pulling through that slip stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I know I said 20. I am going to do 20. Right now I'm finding that the ring is more of a hindrance to me than it is helping. You may find the opposite to be true. Perfectly fine. I'm going to just take it off. What's important is that you guys know that these do exist. You can find them. Again, this came from Amazon. It came in a 6-pack. I got it for free as a Vine reviewer. I get a lot of things that I get to review, which is really great, but I get to pass a lot of the stuff back to you guys. So I'm going to just put that there for now. I'm going to continue on making 10 more chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, see, that went a whole lot faster. But you can see with the tension ring, my tension was a bit tighter. See how they're a little more condensed, and my natural tension is a bit looser. It's more, not like super loose, but it's a medium, and that's fine. This will all kind of work out, so I'm not worried that the tension's a little off, but at least you can see that the tension remained consistent using the tension ring. That's really important if you find that your tension's sort of fluctuating, or you haven't got the haven't found how to hold it. It's going to come in time. All right, so we got 20, and because our single crochet stitch is 1 stitch high, we're going to do an extra chain because you need the height. And I'm going to flip my work over. I'm not going to go into the front and back chain, or front and back loops. I'm going to turn my work over, and you can see all those little bumpies there that are staring at you. I'm going to work into that, because what will end up happening is my finished work will have this as an edge versus this. So just for demonstrational purposes, I'm going to work into this first back bump here. So I'm going to put my hook into that back bump. I'm going to see how there's 2 loops now. Make sure your loops are on that shaft and you can easily slide your hook through. Going to grab that yarn over, going to pull through. There we go. I'm gonna just pull it through that back bump. So you've got your working yarn, you've got your working yarn here. Oh, you've got your sorry, you got your chain stitch, and you've got your working yarn here. It's attached. You just put it through the back bump. Gonna yarn over, and you're gonna pull through 2. Again, stick that hook underneath that back bump, grab that yarn, pull it underneath that back bump. You've got 2 loops on your hook. And wrap that yarn, pull it through 2. That's your second single crochet. Into that back bump, wrap that yarn, 2 loops, wrap that hook, pull through 2. We're going to do the same thing all the way down. You have to use your fingernails to kind of get that hook all the way through that back bump. You go ahead and do that. My apologies for, I might be off camera more than I think I am. I'm not really watching myself in the camera. I'm sort of just watching what I'm doing. I notice that sometimes I do sort of tend to want to bring things closer to me because I'm sort of working a bit further away than what I'm used to. So I'm still getting used to having a camera here, and eventually we'll get it sorted. We'll figure things out. Okay, and we've got, that's it. That's your slip knot there. That's not a stitch. That's your slip knot. So that's 1 row of single crochet complete. And if we were to compare our row of single crochet, it's going to twist totally normal, to our row of slip stitches, you can see that it's twice the height. Okay, so it's really important to know that stitches do, they do kind of have a height difference, and that's why, you either have to chain 1 or chain 2 or 3 or sometimes 4, depending on what stitch you're using. So here we go, we've got that. And now we've got our first row of single crochet. We're going to demonstrate how to do a half double crochet. So if you were with me at the last event last month, we covered the half double crochet, and the make at home project was a scarf. So hopefully you guys have had a chance to work on that. And I would love to see how much you've accomplished since then. So with the half double crochet, a half double crochet stitch is taller than the single that we just did. So we need to chain 2 to get the height of our half double crochet. And again, we're not working into where our chain is coming out of. For me, it's this yellow stitch here. I'm working into that first green one because I don't want to put essentially, I'd be putting 2 stitches into this space, and I don't want to do that. If you want to keep nice straight edges, you want to keep your stitch count correct. If you start adding stitches, your work will start to veer out. If you happen to not have enough stitches, you're going to kind of taper in, and you'll start to know if your work does this, or maybe both, from your edging. So sometimes it's nice for beginners, and I should have mentioned to put like maybe a stitch marker at your first stitch and put a stitch marker at your last stitch. So if you're still having trouble identifying where your stitches start and end, those stitch markers would be a nice visual for you to know. And because we've only done 20, you can just count your stitches to see if you still have that. So we've done 2 chains, and a half double is very similar to the single, but instead we're going to start with a wrap of the hook, and we're going to stick that into the first stitch. And I should say it's actually technically the second. This is your first stitch, this is your second from the hook, but it's your first available stitch. So again, we're going to wrap. I hold it just because that's just instinctually how I do it. You don't have to. I'm going to push through both the front loop and back loop of that stitch. Grab your yarn, going to pull it through that stitch. Now you've got 3 on your hook, and make sure all 3 loops are on that shaft. You want them all to be consistent. Wrap your hook again, so yarn over, and pull through all 3. There you go. So again, it's wrap a hook, hold it, stick it between the front, and make sure you catch that back loop. Gonna wrap that yarn, bring it through. You've got 3 loops on your hook. You're gonna wrap the yarn over your hook again and pull through 3, whether you do it as 1, 2, 3, that's fine. Or you can do, 2 and 1, that's fine. Or you can pull through all 3 together, that's fine, because it doesn't matter. You've pulled through all 3, whether you've done it individually, 2 and 1, or all 3. Doesn't matter as long as you pull it through all 3 at some point. So again, you're wrapping your hook, you're sticking it through the front and back loop of the next stitch, you're pulling your yarn under that stitch, you've got 3 loops on your hook, you wrap the yarn, and you're pulling through all 3. And we're going to do that through all the stitches on the rest of the row. So feel free to pause, to rewind, give yourself a chance to catch up. I'm just going to autopilot through the rest of the row, just so my video is not 2 hours long. Okay, we're at the end. There we go. And that's the last of it. I'm going to turn our work. And we're going to go the other way. So we've done our chain. You guys have done in this sample here a slip stitch. We've done a single crochet as our first row. We've done a double crochet as our second row, or I'm sorry, a half double crochet. And now we're going to do a double, which is what we're going to be using in our next live event next Saturday. So again, going along with the theory that, you know, a single crochet is 1 stitch high, a half double is 2 stitches high, the next in line would be the double, 3 stitches high. So you've got to do 3 chains to get the height of a double crochet. So you're already, whatever you've just done in these 2 rows, you're pretty much doing in this 1 stitch. All right, so again, we're not working in this stitch here where our chains are coming out of. We're working into the next available free stitch, which is right here. It's going to be the second from the hook. So your double crochet is very similar to the half double. You're going to start with a wrap. You're going to insert your hook through both the front and back loop, just like you did before. You're pulling it underneath that stitch, just like you did before. You're going to have 3 loops on your hook, just like you did before. You're wrapping your hook again. Rather than pulling through all 3, you're going to pull through 2. You'll have 2. You're going to wrap that hook again, and you're going to pull through 2. That's a double crochet. So we're going to wrap the hook into the next available stitch. Going to grab that yarn, pulling it underneath that stitch. You've got 3 loops on your hook, which should be nice and easy. You're going to wrap your yarn over the hook, and you're going to pull through 2. So you've got 2, wrap again, and pull through 2. Let me just grab a little more yarn here so I'm not fighting with it later. Here we go. And we're going to do the same thing all the way down. I'm going to wrap the yarn over the hook. We're going to yarn over, stick that through the front and back loops there. I'm going to grab that yarn, pull it through. So now you've got 3 on your hook. Wrap that yarn and pull through 2. Wrap, pull through 2. You can see these stitches are got more space between them, and they actually, these bits here are what we call posts. So again, the side facing you is your front post, and the back is a back post. I'll try to get more into that in another video, probably after the class, not to confuse anybody. So I'm going to wrap again into the next available stitch through both the front loop and the back loop. I'm going to grab that yarn, pulling it underneath that last stitch. You'll have 3 on your hook, wrapping that yarn, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Okay, same thing all the way down the line. Wrap, insert under the stitch, pull it through, 3 on the hook, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Okay, same thing all the way down. Again, if I'm going too fast at this point, you can put me on pause. You can rewind it. I'm going to just do the same thing all the way down to the end of the row. one more right there. Okay, so that's the double crochet, and there's one more basic stitch. So we've learned the slip stitch here. We've done our first row of single, we've done a row of half double and a row of double. So we've had, let's see, now we're going to do a triple. We say triple in North America. It's also known as a treble in the UK, and that's kind of where some of the terminology gets a little mixed up. So for now I'm going to call it a triple because we've got singles, half doubles, doubles, so it would make sense just to call it a triple. So that's what we're going to do. And so we've done 1 chain for a single, 2 chains for a half double, 3 chains for a double, and if you guessed 4, you'd be correct. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the tallest chain that I'm aware of. So if you can master what we're doing in this video, if you can get a slip stitch down, if you can get a single, a half double, a double, and even this triple, there is nothing you cannot make, because all the stitches work together, are created using one or various stitches that we've just done. So this is the very basics. So again, if you can do any of these stitches, basically a single, half double, and double are they're all common. You'll see them in just about every pattern, and then they use them in variety of, maybe 2 together. Anyway, I don't want to confuse you. I'll get back on track here. So we've just chained 4 because that's the height of our triple crochet. So if you're comfortable with this double crochet, I know if Mike, if you're watching, this one's for you, bud. So you're gonna wrap the hook again. We're not going into where our chains are coming out of. We're gonna go into that next available space just to keep our edges straight. So we've already wrapped. You're going into underneath the front and back loop like we've been doing. We're pulling that yarn through. You're gonna have 3, just like we did for the double. Wrapping that, pull through 2. Oh, wait a minute. Nope, that's incorrect. I have to do a double wrap. It's been a while since I have done, so you got to do 2 wraps. All right, so do that again. We've already done our 4. I'm gonna wrap and wrap, and then we put in, and we pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. There we go. We got it. So these are going to be a lot more spaced, a lot more open. So sometimes what people would use for like the mesh tote bags or anything that, requires, like even like plant hangers, almost like a macrame style. So again, wrapping it twice, putting into the next stitch, pulling it through. We've got 4 loops. I'm going to wrap the yarn, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. There we go. Yeah, we got a groove. Oh, hang on, I only did it once, didn't I? I gotta remember the second wrap. It's not often I triple crochet, obviously. But here we go. We're learning together. So you're wrapping it twice into the next available stitch, pulling it through. You've got 4 loops on your hook there. Wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. All right, let me unravel my little mess here. I'm gonna do that again. Wrap and wrap, insert, pull through. You got 4 loops. Wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. And definitely, if you've got to move your thumb and forefinger or index finger up to kind of, you know, help with pulling through 2, wrap pulling through 2. You do what makes it work for you. If you're able to do it, you know, lower down, that's fine too, as long as you're getting the correct motion in. Doesn't really matter where you're holding on to it. So wrap and wrap. Don't forget the extra wrap. I keep doing that. Keep catching myself. 4 loops. Pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. There we go. Wrap and wrap. Insert. Underneath. 4 loops. Wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. If you gotta sing that little song throughout each stitch, you go ahead and sing. That's fine. If that's what helps you to remember, do what works for you. I'm gonna continue on. Wrap and wrap. And pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. Wrap and wrap. Insert. 4 loops, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap and wrap, insert, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2, wrap, pull through 2. If I've inadvertently given you guys an earworm, I apologize. But you know, if it helps you to remember how to do the stitch, I don't apologize. Oh, I think I might have missed it there. Wrap and wrap. See, I think I have to sing along because I think I end up forgetting what I'm doing. Like I instinctually want to just do a double crochet. Alright, we got 3 more to go. How do I know it's 3? I've got 1 post, 2 posts, 3 posts. That's how I know. That's what's great about working with these taller stitches, is there really is no mistaking where your next stitch is going or where the row ends. I feel like I didn't do that right again. Oops. Wrap and wrap. Pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2. Alright. So those are your basic stitches in crochet. You've got your slip stitch, your very smallest stitch. You're not adding much height to whatever you're making, so that's something to keep in mind when, you know, you're just freehanding something. You're not necessarily following a pattern, you're just sort of just playing around. You have your double crochet, or I'm sorry, your single crochet, very popular. You'll see that in just about every project. You got a half double, which is slightly a bit taller, a bit more looser, but still very popular. You got your double crochet in here, and then you got your really tall triples in here, and you can't mistake where you're putting those stitches. So that's that. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a fasten off. So I'm going to just sort of pull, give myself a little bit of leeway here, take my hook out, going to just sort of trim the end here. And let's say that was like a finished project, just sort of pull that through. That's called fastening off. That way if you ever have to sort of put your project down and come back to it, your stitches aren't going to unravel on you. But now with crochet, you've got to weave in your ends, so they are definitely not going to come out. So you're gonna use your needle and you're going to sort of do your best to hide in these ends. I know some people want to, I think maybe knotting might seem to be a good option. It can be. I have noticed in my experience that sometimes they tend to unravel if you don't do them properly. Sometimes you need more than just a double knot. So I find that weaving in your ends, there's no right or wrong to leaving them in. Because my yarn is variegated, I can kind of just sort of try to match it up with the color that I've got. So I've got like a little bit of orange left. I'm working into a bit of a pink coming up. I could probably just sort of hide it into here a little bit. You don't have to go straight. It's better that you don't go straight. You kind of want to, you know, go in different directions. You don't want to pull too tight because you don't want to scrunch your work like that. So you want to be a bit loose, but you want to catch various strands and in various places so that when you give this a tug, these ends that you're hiding just don't come undone. So that's one. Just snip that off. And then you've got your slip knot side. You gotta get that one in there too. There we go. So yeah, again, this video is more as a supplemental for the in-person lessons that you guys might be attending. I do find that I've got a lot to share, and I feel like I don't always have a proper time enough to actually share all this with you, as well as answer questions on site and, you know, helping people individually. So yeah, within 2 hours, I feel like I can't quite get everything in that I want to get in. So if you guys are attending my live lessons, thank you. I appreciate that. It's definitely nice seeing people show up and knowing that there is still, you know, very much an interest in people learning to crochet. So I do appreciate that. So hopefully you will go through these videos in a somewhat chronological order, because that's kind of what they're intended. So yeah, so for me, it's like trying to make sure I inform you guys thoroughly, and this is the best way that I can think to do that. So if you feel like you didn't quite get enough attention or enough direction in the live classes that you're attending, first off, I will apologize. Depending on the size of the class, it can be quite challenging to navigate, you know, 10 to 20 people, depending on the size of the class. But that's why I'm creating these videos, to sort of help supplement what I can't get to during the live events. And it also shows people who may not be local, who want to learn to crochet. Hopefully they've, you know, will learn something as well. So I do appreciate you guys coming back, and I won't be the type of YouTuber that will, you know, try to sell you on anything. I'm not going to constantly throw in the typical, you know, like, subscribe, share, because it's not meant for that purpose. It's just, it's a teaching purpose. It's a teaching tool. So I hope you guys enjoy the videos, and I hope you guys come back for more. Thank you so much.